So I grew up in the north of Iran, moved to Hull, found it very hard. We were seen as different. That was the main thing that shocked me, really. The bullying with me got really, really bad. I like being an athlete because he gets so much respect for it. I started doing a bit of kayaking. You're not going by the dress code of the Islamic Republic. Maybe kayaking's not for you. Gymnastics, same issue. Joined a football team. You shouldn't be playing football. Later, I was always in the gym. My partner said to me, you know what, I'm seeing a lot of girls competing, so why don't you just go compete? But we won actually 2 overalls and won a top 5 placements at the European NCP show. To the community, they're not just going to see a girl in a bikini, they're going to see a bodybuilder. In Iran, there's no reason to legalize it because women shouldn't be bodybuilders. They can't even come abroad and compete and then go back. There will be long trials because the end of that route is just execution.
Welcome back to the KultureKast podcast. My guest today is an IFBB bikini competitor and 3-time Miami Pro winner. Welcome, Jayda Milani. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all good.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh no, thank you for sparing the time. I know that you're a very busy woman, so
it's a pleasure.
I really appreciate it. We've been trying to set this up a while, but obviously competing in this summer and things. We'll get onto the competitions because there was a few rescheduling issues, and that's quite interesting to talk about because if someone's prepping for so long and then having to reschedule, it's But I think I'm jumping ahead too far because at the beginning of each podcast, what I normally like to do is just take a trip down memory lane, talk about baby Jayda. What was your upbringing like? What was your cultural upbringing like, and all of that jazz?
Well, so I grew up in the north of Iran. I was born in Iran, and I grew up in the north of Iran near the Caspian Sea, so the Russian border. So from a seaside, beachy city, island girl, to be honest, because where I'm from is literally a little island that's separated from the whole city. So So I grew up there with my parents, mum and dad, no siblings at the time, and then moved to the UK as my dad was in import and export. So they needed a representative in the company here. So we moved to the UK and we had to be at a port. So we moved to Hull in East Yorkshire. Out of all places.
Out of all places, yeah.
So north. Yeah, so North England was my first point of stop when I came to the UK. I was around seven, turning 8 at the time. Had no level of English, like we didn't even speak a word. My dad just spoke as much as he could run the business with, not really anything at a high level. My mom didn't speak a word of English either, so I started school here in year 4. Yeah, end of year 4, beginning of year 5. So that was the ultimate beginning, how I moved here.
So the first question I probably have for that is, do you remember anything about Iran? Do you remember anything growing up? Because obviously 7 years old, do you remember anything of like playing and things? Do you have any vivid memories of back home?
Yeah, 100%. I actually have a lot of memories of my childhood in Iran. A lot of like the culture that was involved. I went to a lot of weddings, and I witnessed. I've got like 5 aunties from my mom's side, so I am the eldest grandchild in that family, so I literally saw them all getting married. So you can see a lot of culture in like marriages and ceremonies. So I was, I saw a lot of that, and I spent a lot of afternoons with my grandparents, and I had a lot of cousins, and I remember a lot from being back at home. And sometimes my parents kind of were like, "Oh, you remember that?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, I do. I remember it all. All the trips that we used to go on with my dad." And he was very into exploring everywhere in Iran, so we would go out a lot you know, on like weekend trips and stuff like that. So yeah, I learned a lot about the geography, the history at a very early age before we had to leave.
It is fascinating that when you're a child you do absorb a lot. Like I used to go back home to India
Yeah,
and to see my nana and things, and I think when you go to a different place at such a young age, you I think it
yeah.
does broaden your horizons, doesn't it? You do absorb a
Definitely,
lot.
definitely. Yeah, it's sometimes I remember things and I'm just like, how did I
Yeah.
just remember that? It's just like small things, you know. But yeah, it's really cool that I have that memory, and I'm honestly really grateful. A lot of people say, "Oh, are you born here?" I'm like, you know what? I'm actually glad that I wasn't, and I got to experience that childhood being in Iran, you know, growing up with my grandparents, because you know, at an early age, being departed from them was actually really difficult because I
Mhm.
was with them all the time. And I had two uncles who don't have much of a age gap between with me, as you know, with like our families. So they've got so many kids. So the last two are like boys, and they don't have a big age gap with me. And I was very close with them, and being departed from them and coming to the UK, I just felt so lonely. It was devastating for me, and I just wanted to be back. I used to cry and say, you know what, I don't like it here. I was willing to leave my parents and go back to my grandparents.
Yeah.
So I know my parents wasn't really happy about that, but yeah, I found it very hard adapting and being here.
Yeah, I can relate with the I think most South Asians and Indians can probably relate with the family dynamics. A lot of my eldest
Yeah.
cousins, I'm the youngest in my family, but a lot of my
Hmm.
oldest cousins are
Yeah.
probably closer to my parents' age than they are mine. So it's
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
a similar situation. When you
Yeah.
came, obviously from, it sounds like such a like a paradise the way that you described like an
Hmm.
island environment, and then obviously going
Yeah.
to Hull, all respect
Yeah.
intended to Hull, but it's probably very different, and then not being able to
Yeah.
speak the language and all these other barriers. How sort of, I don't want to say tough, but how much of a learning experience, should I say, was that?
You know what? Straight up, I'm gonna say it was tough.
Okay.
And we'll touch upon that a little bit more. But my teenage years and most of the childhood years growing up here, I can, I shouldn't, but I do, and I've gone past that phase now. But it was the worst part of my whole life up to now because it was just so difficult. Where I was from, people were just so friendly, so chilled. You know, I didn't know what racism was. I didn't know the difference between, you know, the cultures, and that you can not be accepted in a society. I had no experience of that. I had not seen any of that. I mean, my city was a city that the whole of Iran would travel to for domestic holidays.
Mhm.
And because it had a seaside, it had like a very famous lagoon, with a lot of you know, things to see and explore. Even scientists, it was a hotspot for scientists, for Europeans. So I had seen such a good side of the world, and then I was brought to Yorkshire, and at the time, this was like 21 years ago or so, yeah. And at the time, there wasn't many foreigners or Iranians or Asians in that city at
Mhm.
the time. And so for a lot of British people, we were seen as different. And it was hard for them to accept us because it was just starting to get like more and more people like us were coming, more Iranians, more Iraqis, a lot of which were like refugees, asylum seekers, so people who have had like a lot of trouble back home and they've traveled for a safe place here. And I could see that they were given a hard time, and I also was given a very hard time growing up, and being, you know, in the school system here. And that was the main thing that shocked me really more than anything, just the difference of the environment I was in, being surrounded by so much love from family and friends. And then suddenly I'm in a country, in a city where I have no family other than my mom and dad. And the people around me think I'm not good enough, or I was really confused at the time. I didn't understand why I wasn't being accepted in society, in their society. I just saw myself as one of the other kids. I couldn't understand what went on through their heads or what was going on in their families, that it was so hard for them to be my friend and, you know, to be patient with my language, or even the adults, to be honest. There were times where they just didn't have the patience, and I just felt like I was in a place where I didn't belong, basically.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask there, to be fair, is because I've had this conversation with obviously a lot of people on this podcast so far coming from multicultural backgrounds, is the bullying thing at school. Because for example, myself, I'm from Newcastle, so even a bit further north than Hull, and again, lack of diversity and at the time anyway. Obviously, I think everywhere now is becoming a bit more diverse, but the conversation that I have with a lot of people is, do you think you get bullied regardless? Like, because kids will be kids, do you know what I mean? And they just pick on the one factor that you stand out on. So the kid with glasses will be picked on for glasses. The kid who's overweight will be picked on for overweight. If he's a ginger kid, you'll get picked on for that. And then because we're different, and obviously you can see myself, I take 3 out of 4 of them boxes. Do you know what I mean? I'm a bit overweight. I've got glasses and I'm brown. Do you know what I mean? So it's probably just one of the angles they can attack you at.
I still don't think that gives anyone the reason to bully anyone. I mean, maybe it's because I'm speaking from a place that I've felt that firsthand, and I know the feeling of it. But you're absolutely right. Yes, bullying will always exist. But the thing is, with race, it's a little bit behind the doors still, and it's not widely spoken about in schools, as you know, and it's kind of hidden. It's those like little remarks and, you know, the sly smiles, and then they'll just say something, the penny might not even drop, that was just them being racist to me, and then they'll walk past it. But with like being overweight and some certain looks that is a lot more common in all races, that gets spoken about. Well, you're not allowed to bully anyone. Yes, you're not allowed to bully anyone for their race or for their hair color. And it's a little bit, I felt like it was a little bit stricter than the subject of race. Oh no, he wasn't being racist, but I felt that way. I felt like you're putting a difference. It's a matter of proving where what that person has said is coming from. You know what I mean? But like after a while, you can tell from the body language, the way someone talks to you, the respect they give you. I don't know if you're understanding what I'm saying, or if I'm even clear.
100%, I understand. Because again, similarly, I've had the sly remarks that can be passed on as jokes in a crowd or something at school, and you're the butt of the joke, and it is probably from a racial point of view. Sorry, but it's just an interesting one, because as I say, like I've had the conversation with quite a few people now, and everyone comes from a different perspective depending on the things that they've experienced. Similarly to yourself, I think I've experienced a bit like yourself, probably not to the same extent, because obviously I was born here, I could speak the language, it was easier for me to integrate, but you still do get the comments, and maybe it's because it's so much of a bigger issue if it is racism, that they want to power it off as not, if that makes sense.
Because it's such a serious issue and it has a lot of consequences. If it's proven that is the case, then people, like in schools, adults just don't want to get involved with it. Do you know what I mean? They'll just brush it under the carpet, and this keeps happening. Whereas if someone picks on you for having ginger hair, they have to be really bold with their remarks to, do you know what I mean, to bully you about your ginger hair. They'll say something to refer to your hair, but they won't be able to directly say something to refer to your skin color or your culture. They'll just create this hate relationship with you, and they'll say it's not because of your race, it's just because you're weird.
Yeah.
What is this culture you have? How come your dad doesn't let you do this, or your mom doesn't let you do that? You people are not normal. And it starts to escalating into something that it's nothing to do with the color of your skin or you. It's just you're weird. And
you're weird because you're different is what they're trying to say, and you're different because
exactly.
I get it.
And
so when you came, sorry, that was 21 years ago, so 2000, obviously.
2000, yeah.
Again, a conversation I've had with a few people is the thing that happened in September of 2001 is probably a turning point for a lot of ethnic minority groups, and I'm guessing that doesn't make anything easier.
No, that just made everything even harder. I think exactly a year after when this happened, the bullying with me got really, really bad, and it got to a point where I was physically abused as well, constantly, like people ganging up on me after school. I was in hospital a number of occasions. School was like the worst place for me to go, and it was funny that I would get beaten up, and then I would get questioned the next day by the teachers as to why did you start the fight. And I was always very confused. How can I start a fight with 7 other people, mix of girls and boys who just beating me up? And now I'm sat here answering questions where it should be them. Do you know what I mean? Yes, it got worse after September 11, and it just felt like it was so much hate that they felt more free to come out with because of this happening, and because a lot more people were speaking out. They felt like it was okay to, make it obvious that
it sort of got a pass because it was literally the country was against like people who look like us, you know what I mean, like people who were either Middle Eastern or brown, and turban wearing for a lot of Sikhs. There was a lot of turban wearing Sikh men who obviously also got a lot of backlash from it, and the Muslim community as a whole obviously got like a lot of backlash from that, and it obviously was terrible. I don't know if it is getting better. I hope it is, but like recently with the whole Taliban situation in Afghanistan, I think we've seen a bit of a spike up again of it, and it is obviously not great, because then whatever kids' parents are saying or when they're watching the news, or just the news in general, kids pick up on that, and even if they don't have malice, they sort of subconsciously pick it up, and it's a very awkward situation.
It'll always be 1 or 2 kids that will have that insight from their parents, and then the rest of the children, the kids, will just follow what those 2 kids are hating, and they won't need a reason to hate. And a lot of these kids, they had a lot of trouble at home, so they were from backgrounds who the alcoholic dad, mums into drugs, mental health issues. And I remember at the time, I used to even think, why is my bully doing that? And then I would, over time, kind of spot them in the head teacher's office, talking about issues that they've had, or people talking about, so-and-so's mum's done this, or so-and-so's dad's done this. And then I used to think, maybe it actually isn't me. Maybe he has or she has a problem at home, and I'm just a punching bag. And I used to try and justify it, even being a young age. Now I think, a lot of kids being bullied, they wouldn't think like that. They'll be like, well, it's just not fair. But I used to even think about the bully.
Yeah.
It could be that he or she's going through a lot and is bringing it to school, and because everybody else has started this thing with me, bullying me, that person also feels like they can just take it out on me as well. And that is another aspect of the society which a lot of people forget, that bullies bully for a reason as well, most of the times because they don't have a stable home.
It's like they're saying it, it's like hurt people, I think is the phrase, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and it is exactly that.
Yeah.
But then again, like, I think you're probably a very compassionate person to make excuses for the person who's bullying you.
I think it was more than that. I was just trying to justify it in my own head to see, why am I such a hateable person? Because that's what I thought back then. And I genuinely believed that I had something wrong with me. So it's just sad.
So something that you mentioned earlier, and I don't know if you could give me any sort of explanation for this, but because it's purely out of ignorance, is, you know, when you were mentioning how a lot of Iranians and Iraqis sort of came at a similar time, is this the sort of Kurdistan sort of?
Yeah.
Could you explain this to me? Because I
during
know briefly of this, but I'm not like 100.
I was quite young back then, but I know in Iran and in Iraq and Kurdistan, there was a lot of political issues going on, and people were actually running for their lives, and there was a war going on, you know, for Iraq and Kurdistan, and they had to literally run for their lives. And a lot of the problems in Iran was political issues and social issues, and a lot of people were running because they were like on their last warning with government, or they were, you know, waiting in line for court orders that would probably be up for execution and things like that. So for just simple things, maybe being caught with alcohol, or not having the perfect type of hijab on, they were on their third warning, or maybe, you know, anything else. There's a lot of things that are forbidden in Iran, so people would run into issues like that. And it was very bad at the time because the government had started being a lot more strict. So there was a lot of like young people literally running from Iran for their lives, basically to save their lives. So, and then the UK was accepting asylum seekers and had offered to give home to these people in danger. So that's why there was a lot of refugees coming into the UK at the time. And I think, and this is funny because I think before all of this happening and that side of the world coming, there was a lot of refugees from Kosovo that had come. And I think that was because of a previous war, I think, that happened there as well.
Yeah, I think that's Bosnian War, isn't it?
Bosnia, yeah, the Bosnian War. So they would refer to us as Kosovans. And I was so confused at the time. So confused. Still to this day, sometimes I laugh. I'm like, they used to call me, they used to say, oh, you Kosovan. I was like, where? What? That's nowhere near where I'm from. But why? Because previous to us, there was hate towards them.
Right. So it was just like round two, basically. That's how they saw you.
Round two. But then when I found out where Kosovo was, and then I found out what they look entirely different to us, and they even look European, and they're much more lighter skin. And so why were they getting a lot of hate? They were getting a lot of hate because they just came into a country and they were apparently taking over all the jobs and apparently taking over all the housing, and that's why they were being hated. So with this thing was just continuing and it got to us.
Well, it still continues today. Like you see with Brexit, do you know what I mean? And it was the same excuses that we used for that.
Yeah.
But we'll not go into that because that's a way more.
But yeah, that was my childhood basically in a nutshell. Growing up in
it's very fascinating because I feel like people who do end up achieving success do normally no, very few people come from a perfect household and then go on to achieve greatness. Is how I see it. So if it gives you any solace, that's sort of a thing that can be said. But do you think the maybe language barrier, they getting bullied and things, do you think that helped you get into sport when you were a kid? Because I know that you were into like football and other sports, because it's not a place that you need language.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a place where you can just express yourself without having to talk. But I think the sporting background mainly came from my dad, because he was in the Iranian national team for kayaking. And and he was like one of the best in his team. They had come over for I think it was the World Championships to Finland and the Olympics in London. So
wow.
He had, he was a very high achiever in his field, and that always inspired me. And also, my mom's side of family, as I said, because I was from a seaside city, that was their main, kayaking was their main sport. And so we had a lot of like success in our family in that sporting area. And so I grew up around quite sporty people at high level. And my dad was always my inspiration. And I always thought, you know what, I like being that person. I like being an athlete, because he gets so much respect for it. And that was what I really liked about it, because people would just approach him and talk about like the World Championships and the Olympics. And I was like, wow, this is my dad, you know. It was like inspirational for me. Even now, like as I grew up, I realized even more and more how much these competitions were so important, you know, and that my dad was involved in that. You know, it's nice to have that to look up to. So I think that's where it mainly came from. And then I realized that I wanted to be, because I wanted to be an athlete. That's what I wanted to be. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? I started doing a bit of kayaking with my dad, and then he soon clocked that kayaking in this country for a girl, it's not the same as Iran. You're not going by the dress code of the Islamic Republic, so you're a bit more free. And my dad was a little bit strict on that. And so he was like, maybe kayaking's not for you, maybe look into another sport. So then I went into gymnastics, same issue. And then that was very short. And then he was just, his culture had brought him up like that. And it was very difficult for him as well, being in England and having to adapt to that culture, having a daughter, you know, that for him was a little bit difficult to absorb and go by. So and then I just joined a school team for football, and I wasn't very good in the beginning. I just enjoyed being on the field. I just enjoyed playing a sport, being part of a team. I absolutely loved it, like that I could bring something to a team and feel important. And that was it. Being given that feeling that I was needed in a team and being important, which was, it felt like that's what I've been looking for all this time, because I've been bullied so much and hated so much and looked at as the outsider. Finally, I was part of a team that the teammates didn't really approve of, but luckily I had a coach that was very nice and, you know, saw something in me and helped me nurture my skills in football. And later, a friend of my dad's, his wife was involved in the whole circles hockey team. And on the weekends, I wanted to play more sports. And my dad said, you know what, you're just so into this, just go with her on the weekends and, you know, do whatever you want to do, because she was a lady and she would take care of me. And, you know, that cultural thing came in again. And I didn't have to wear as much revealing clothes for hockey. I think he approved of that. But he didn't like me playing football. He always said to me, "You're a girl. You shouldn't be playing football. You should be doing other things." But then I thought, what? You've had a problem with everything.
But then
What do I
you
play?
can't do gymnastics because it's too revealing. So then
Yeah, it's like the clothes is too tight and blah blah. And I was like, what do I do? So I just stuck to hockey because that person that would take me there, she was just like my savior basically. So, and then it got really serious. Hockey got really serious. I got into the team, and then my dad saw, oh my God, she's like leaving all her studies to be a hockey player or a football player. And then the bend it like Beckham situation started. Literally, the bend it like Beckham situation started. And I literally had to like secretly, I'm at a after school maths class.
I'm at the library. Yeah.
I'm at the library, but I was like playing football or on the bus coming back, like avoiding my dad's phone calls because he would pick me up and drop me off from school. So he was very protective. So I was like, oh my God, I'm coming back with a team. Like imagine doing something good, but still having a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Because of cultural reasons. I tried to fight him for as long as I could, but then as I grew up, I just understood the fact that, look, he's been nurtured that way for, at the time he was maybe 39 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm here trying to change everything he thought that was right all these years. It's just impossible.
It must be difficult for himself as well, because he's coming from that conservative sort of traditional background and then into a more like liberal sort of country. And then it is a culture clash, which I think a lot of first gens do. Like first generation immigrants are normally at the brunt of it because their parents are the ones who came over, and it is that constant battle of assimilation versus tradition and trying to meet that middle point of
absolutely.
Like, do you know what I mean? It is difficult.
Yeah. It, I did feel at times quite sorry for him. And then again, I'm saying that like I was still young at this point. I think I was like 14, 15. I was still young, but I would still consider, why is my dad finding it so hard? I still wanted to understand him, and at times I would just step back and be like, okay, fine, but it was still hard because it was just taking away opportunities. And then I got really good and got scouted for like junior teams, and my dad just wouldn't accept that, and he wanted me to continue studying and focus on my studies in college, and like any other Asian dad, he wanted me to be a dentist. So that was like built into me from a very young age. At 9 years old, he put me in his friend's practice and said, you know what, make her like dentistry. Show her the money. Show her the money and she will stay. And I was like, no, it's just not me. So yeah, he tried everything basically. But yeah, so I think that was a very difficult phase again to deal with. My dad being just so against me and my choice of sport and not leaving me with a lot of choices. So
can I just say for the woman who was the hockey coach, I feel like more people in her position are needed as well, like cultural sort of figureheads in extracurricular activities, because then it makes it a bit more like if there is someone from the community that is the person, and obviously more women to do that as well for the girls, because then they feel a lot safer. So if there are more football coaches from minority backgrounds, men and women, if they're more gymnastic coaches, if there's more hockey coaches, basketball, whatever there is, if there's more from that minority or your community backgrounds who are getting involved in it, it makes it a lot easier for the children like yourself.
100%.
Because your
That's
dad
a
was
very
like,
good
it's fine.
point.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it is more important for that to happen going forward. And we've seen it in the Sikh community that a lot of the fighters who are coming through now have been nurtured from coaches who wanted to be fighters when they were younger, are into martial arts, and now are coaching the next generation. But it becomes a bit easier because he's an Indian coach. Did you mean in similar situation to yourself then? It's just something that popped into my head while we were
absolutely.
listening.
You're absolutely right. I haven't even thought about it in that way. But because my dad felt like he could trust this person much more and trust leaving her daughter, his daughter with this lady, and for hours traveling, going away to different cities for matches and stuff like that, coming back late at night. As an Iranian dad, he must have needed to really trust someone at that level to let me actually go and do what I love doing. So you're absolutely right, and I hope that our cultural differences don't stop us from letting our kids in doing what they love and actually being an example for the community and allowing other children to get involved as well. So that was a really good point that you mentioned.
100%. And I think nowadays it is a lot easier because we do have social media, we have Instagram. If you want to follow somebody who is excelling in a sport, and obviously there'll be a lot of Iranian kids who want to get into fitness who'll be looking up to you.
True.
But a question that I think I want to ask is, did you get the line of "you can do it after you're married"? Because that's something that's quite commonly said in in a South Asian family, in like a household. No?
In my family, we wouldn't talk about my marriage. You see, marriage is a very key thing I've noticed in like Indian, Pakistani, Bengali cultures. I've actually grew up with these cultures, and marriage is a very big deal, and the girl knows and openly talks to the family about it, or the family talks about it. But with Iranians, it's not like that. It's like, what are you thinking about marriage for? You ain't getting married yet. Like, right. You need to study, you need to be a doctor, you need to be, an engineer. Forget about marriage. Like, even like mixing with the other sexes was like it's not talked about. It was
right.
It was like as if it was something that you should be ashamed of at that age to talk about. It's not something that's been open ever in my family anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my mom wouldn't even speak to me about it, like about marriage or about guys or anything like that. So that is a big difference as well. I don't think, and I've seen a lot of Iranian families around me, they don't speak openly about marriage to their daughters, not until I think 23, 22. I think that the age for marriage is much older in Iran these days, where it used to be very, very young. But now it's not like that. And
no, I think it's
I never
similar
had that conversation.
Yeah, sorry, I think it is similar for like South Asians in that respect of 20, like basically after university is normally when the conversation is brought up after you've completely your studies. But sometimes it's
they wouldn't even refer to it as like, right. Oh, after marriage you can think about like after marriage, like marriage wasn't opened up to a girl, so she wouldn't feel comfortable talking about it. Then the next thing would be talking about boys, then the next thing would be, oh, I have a boyfriend. So they wouldn't even allow it. That barrier was there, and it was like so full on.
Okay, like they don't want to end up slippery slope.
It was, unless you get caught with a boyfriend, and they'll be like, oh, you have a boyfriend? How dare you? Like, and then
that's a separate win.
You're never seen as the same daughter again if you were caught with a boyfriend. But yeah.
On the topic of marriage, I guess, how did you get into bodybuilding? Because from what I understand, it was sort of after marriage, wasn't it, that you sort of were going to the gym consistently? And I think your other half basically said, you take this so seriously, why not try to enter a competition?
So after being taken, after so many opportunities being taken from me in the sporting field, I was always stayed, active, always in the gym, just being involved, doing different things here and there. And gym was just always a part of my life. And I started to notice that, you know what, as I grew older, I thought, you know what, maybe I used to just play team sports to prove something to people, to prove that I can be part of something and that I can be accepted. I was always trying to be accepted. But then when I was in the gym on my own, doing my own thing, doing my own research, and then seeing improvements, or just liking the atmosphere, liking being a person who goes to the gym, you know, that itself just brought on the idea of, you know what, I don't have to prove anything to anyone. No one, I don't have to try and get people to accept me. This sport is just me versus me, and I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun, and I'm seeing improvements. And so, because of constantly being in the gym, my partner said to me, you know what, I'm seeing a lot of girls competing, and you know, he knows that a lot of opportunities obviously were taken from me. And he was like, you're so good. I can tell you love it. So why don't you just go compete, and try it out? So many people are doing it these days. Maybe go speak to a coach and see what it's like, how you got to start out. And he had no idea what he was pushing me into. And sometimes he says now, if I knew, I don't know why I said it, but if I knew what it involved, I would have just shut my mouth and not said it. But obviously he has supported me and he loves that I'm in this field, but sometimes he sees how much I work hard, and it's a funny feeling, and I think not many people will understand unless they've lived with someone that sacrifices so much for, you know, an achievement they're looking for, and a goal. And the way he feels is like, I don't know how to put it, like a father does for their child, like always very protective, very cautious. And he gets like that when I'm in prep, and he's constantly like, have you drank enough water? Have you had your meals? Are you okay? And he sees me like doing twice cardio, and he's like, I wouldn't be able to do it. How the hell do you do it? Are you still alive? Hello, are you there? I'm like, I'm fine. And he worries a lot. And just seeing that is like, it breaks my heart. Sometimes I can see you have no energy to push forward, but you get that energy, I don't know where from, but you still manage to do it and you still win. And the process is like him being in prep as well, not just me. So yeah, that's how I got into it. And then I went and spoke to a coach, and then we started out the journey in 2018, late 2018, going into 19. Yeah,
I didn't realize it was that late. I thought it was a bit before, because obviously you have accomplished so much so quickly. I thought you'd be doing it for a lot longer. When you made that decision, obviously growing up and having opportunities taken from you, did that sort of thing sort of come into your mind of like, maybe, I don't know, the cultural side or conflict with competition?
Yeah, I did. And obviously that was something that was at the back of my mind. The first thing was my dad. How is he going to react? But then I don't know, with most of the Asian cultures, once you get married and you're with someone, it's like he has the first say, and your dad has the second say.
Yeah.
They're probably gonna kill me if they say this or this, but yeah. So my partner was like, you know what, I'll speak to your dad. Don't worry about it. And we kind of made this decision, spoke to a coach, and then it kind of started. And we went for dinner around to my mom's, and my partner just kind of mentioned it. He just said, "Oh, by the way, do you know what your daughter's getting involved in?" And I thought, that is not a great way to start this conversation.
It sounds like he's about to chuck you under the bus.
Yeah, and he's funny like that. He likes to like tease me a little bit with things like this, and just makes me nervous. And then I was like, and he goes, what are you getting involved in again? You're always up to something. And I said, oh, I'm going to do women's bodybuilding. And he goes, what? Wear a two-piece and go on stage and stand there for what? Do what? Why? And I said, Dad, you're a sportsman. Like, you've loved bodybuilding all your life. You've got books about it. And you've always showed me these books. And it's always fascinated me. And I think I can be good at it. And then he was just like, you know what? It's nothing to do with me anymore. Your husband can decide. You know, it's and then looked at Omid and said, you know what? This is ridiculous. You have no dignity, son. Why are you entertaining this idea? Why are you pushing her to do this? Are you not going to say anything? Just because she wants to do it, you're going to let it? And he was like, look, I'm not going to stop her doing anything she wants to do. If she thinks she can be good at this, if she thinks she can get something out of it, whether it's just self-satisfaction or actually achieve higher goals, then let it be. I'm not going to stop her. Why should I? Come on, man. We live in UK. We don't live in Iran. The women of our country are being, you know, every day stopped in doing what they want to do. And what we moved here to have the same life, to follow under the government regime. And he was like, I don't care, whatever, I don't want to know. And he didn't come to my first show. He refused to come to my first show, but he did come and visit me at home, and he brought me cupcakes. And he said something that stuck with me till this day. And he said, even though I don't approve of the sport that you do, but I do respect you as an athlete, because I know it's a hard journey. And I'm so happy that you achieved the highest level already and achieved what you wanted. And he just kind of gave me a hug and a kiss. I was like, okay, all right. Is
We're
this
getting
because,
somewhere. This is progress.
yeah, we're getting somewhere. But it made me think, is this because I won? Would he have said the same thing if I hadn't won? But then he proved himself a little bit more as we went along, and did more shows and stuff. But we can come to that later.
But I think that's probably more impactful, the wording he used, because at the beginning of our conversation, you were saying how you looked up to him and the respect that he got as an athlete, and the respect that other athletes gave him as a person, because he achieved as much as he did. And for him to use the same wording to you,
I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Surely that's
I
very
think that's
impactful.
why it sat in my heart, because of the wording that he used. Yeah, because that's what I wanted. I wanted that respect. And when I started out, this was obviously, I told you how I felt about my dad reacting to this, but to the community, I just said, you know what, I'm going to make this into something that when they look at my pictures or when they see me on stage, they're not just going to see a girl in a bikini. They're going to see a bodybuilder who's worked really hard to achieve a goal and to do what they love and to be an athlete. I will try my best to get the Iranian people or the Asian community to see me as an athlete. I'm more than just a girl in a bikini.
100%.
So, and I think I am done that to some extent. Obviously, you can't change the mentality of everyone, but I have had so much more love than I thought I would throughout this journey from my people.
So let's talk about that as well. So, because before we started obviously recording, you were mentioning that this sport is basically illegal for women back home. Obviously, we were speaking beforehand about women getting 3 strikes for not even having the correct hijab. Even your dad not obviously liking you wearing football shorts. Do you know what I mean? And obviously this is a 2-piece, which is a bit more revealing than football shirts.
A lot more.
A lot more. So But you have received like a lot of messages from young women in Iran who look up to you, and you are pushing the boundaries. And obviously it is 2021. We live in modern society where women and men obviously compete at the highest level in majority sports at an equal level.
Yeah.
So why not bodybuilding? Especially if I'm not mistaken, like there have been some incredible male bodybuilders in Iranian history, like even
Oh
back
yeah.
in like Arnold days.
Yes,
Um,
yeah.
so how has all of that sort of situation unfolded since you've sort of started your career and started obviously posting on social media and gaining that following related to your competitions?
Um, you know, I receive messages every day from women that just like when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, the society around me was telling me I'm not good enough and I can't be good enough to be accepted. These women in Iran or in countries similar are accepting that they're not allowed to be, for example, involved in women's bodybuilding because women are not made for that. There's no reason to legalize it because women shouldn't be bodybuilders. Women shouldn't lift heavy weights. It makes no sense. And they are, you know, believing that. And it's like their brothers and their dads would have also gotten into that kind of mentality and would laugh about it, and always see women as weak. Um, and only tough people, tough men can lift heavy weights. And that mentality has been, put into them. And they truly believed that until they started seeing women like me get involved in these sports. And so that concept of women are weak, they shouldn't lift heavy weights, that was now out of the question. And they've opened their eyes more as to, well, she's done it. She's been accepted in another society. So why aren't we getting given that chance? So it's like it was an eye opener. Obviously, I wasn't the first Iranian woman to step on stage. There's been other girls as well. I have my own followings, and they have their own followings, and thousands here, thousands there, and it's just opening more and more eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now I'm getting messages that, you know what, keep doing what you're doing, because we're so proud that you've proven this society wrong, and proven the past generations wrong. And we are here. We can't do it. We can't get involved in this sport, but seeing someone from our own do it is a great feeling. It's a great pride for the Iranian woman, and that's how they talk to me, and that's what they say to me. And I forever will cherish that, because it means so much to me. Because when I first started, I didn't start out to, make the Iranian woman realize what they're missing out on, or to send a message out to them. But then I realized, you know what, just by doing what I'm doing, I'm sending a message 100%. And I'm opening more eyes.
100%.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, obviously, like you, as you said, you did it because you had the passion to start it. But and I've said this throughout like a lot of podcast episodes, is when you see people who look like you achieve greatness in what you want to do, it becomes a bit more achievable. Do you know what I mean? Like it becomes a bit more realistic. And it's sort of similar to what we were saying about the community figureheads before, like the woman who taught you hockey is like, if you can show your parents at a young age, like, look, this person is achieving it and they can sort of achieve it at a high level and they come from a similar background to myself, then it means that it becomes just a little bit easier to persuade them, and it becomes a little bit easier to show the path to success, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
What was the has there been a lot of change since? Obviously, you said that other women have stepped on stage before you, and I assume that there's probably more women in a variety of sports in Iran during the past, let's say, decade. Can you see a shift in mentality and change in that side of things, or?
Yes, I mean, to my surprise, I found out that so many women in the past 2, 3 years have gotten involved in bodybuilding. And it's like, I'm speaking to people back in Iran, and they're like, it's become the most popular sport amongst women. And nearly everybody now has a gym membership. And the the thing is that they want to, like, there's a lot of them, obviously, the ones that enjoy it and like the sport are going to the maximum, even though there's no stage for them to step on. They're going full on with their training, with their dieting, and the thing is, they can't even come abroad and compete and then go back. That's another thing. So I always think, girl, like, you're just doing it because you absolutely love it, because you must love it to be able to put your body through that.
Can you
Physically,
explain that? Sorry.
mentally.
Can you explain why they can't compete and come back? Because this again
Well,
something
yeah.
we discussed, but
So the neighboring country, Turkey, they have stages, and women can step on their stages. So Iranian people can travel to Turkey very freely. And so if they were to come to Turkey and stand on stage and compete, going back, it's obviously there'll be pictures, there'll be media there and stuff, and they will be representing Iran. And it's not good, it's not seen appropriate in the eyes of the Islamic Republic. So you can enter, you can go to Iran, but you could be captured, you could be imprisoned, and there will be long trials because the end of that route is just execution. And so, I mean, they arrested a lady that was, I think she was a power lifter, and she was just very big on social media. And they arrested her and took her in because of her videos on Instagram, because she didn't have appropriate hijab, or she was promoting like weightlifting for women. They didn't like that aspect of it. And so all together, they arrested her, they took her in, and there was so many protests, so many petitions signed to try and free her. And I think because she wasn't in a two-piece, she just didn't have a very good hijab on, she was released, but after months and months of being in prison. So that's why I'm thinking, well, you can't really do anything in the end of it, but you're just doing it because you love it, because you have a passion, and that's harder to have that drive to go towards a goal of maybe one day you could step on stage. So that's the situation.
It's absolutely unbelievable. Like, obviously, as we already said, like, it is modern society, 2021, all these things, and you don't really take into consideration some of the things that you would that are given in Western society that obviously aren't in some places in the world. And I don't want this to sound like, from my perspective, that I'm bashing any country or anything, or like that I'm saying that people are behind or in front or anything like that. It's simply, I like speaking to those who have overcame obstacles to achieve some level of success, and that's what we're talking about now. If we boil it down to pretty much all the episodes, and
yeah,
because I don't want it to sound like that I'm bashing around, because I'm fully not. Like, as we spoke about at the beginning, it is a beautiful country, as we both said, but it is just incredible that these kind of situations are still ongoing. And we spoke about this briefly before we start recording, and it's similar to like in India, where free speech, when you talk about things like 1984, there's a guy called Jagtar Singh Joel who's in prison for basically writing a blog. And when we compare the stories, it's sort of similar. He's been in prison for, I think, 3-4 years now, but it is actually unbelievable that these things are just happening anywhere in the world. And I think it's incredible that people still do it. Do you know what I mean? Like that woman that you're saying, she's still doing it.
Still do it. That's what I find fascinating. But I'd like to refer to something else. You know, when something is forbidden, more people become drawn to it.
Yeah.
And when something is not open, and you can't freely access a lot of information on it, or it's not spoken about as much, then you could end up on the wrong route of that subject. So what I want to say is that because it has been forbidden for a long time, there aren't women bodybuilder coaches to guide these women forward and to inform them of the side effects and the health issues and everything that they need to consider being in this sport. So they're just going by what they are seeing on social media because they don't have access to much else, or YouTube videos which nobody actually certifies that it's right or wrong, or Google, where there's plenty of wrongs and rights on that. So that concerns me because these women are kind of going into it with a little bit of a closed eye, and sometimes I worry for them, for the supplements they use, and the fact that they feel like they need to use supplements, or they need to use steroids, or the type that they're using, because they don't have the right guidance, because it's not made available to them. There hasn't been bodybuilding coaches that have been developed in Iran that can really coach a woman to such physiques that's like for stage or so on. There are, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are amazing coaches, but they don't have expertise in training someone for bikini or for wellness, or these categories that are for women, and dieting a woman with all the hormones involved and all the other stuff. So that is something that does concern me, that unfortunately, because it is forbidden, there's a lack of knowledge, and it could in the long term hurt the women that are involved in this sport in my country.
Definitely, 100% agree. Like, imagine a woman going to compete for the first time, and I've spoken to a female competitor before called Akam, and she was describing that during prep, it's very common for a lot of women to lose their menstrual cycle because the body's just that depleted that your body doesn't prioritize obviously the natural cycle, so it just removes it. But if you're not aware of a situation like that, just for an example, it could be
just a small example,
it could be a very scary situation. And
100%.
Obviously, when we're speaking about hormones, it's completely different for men and women. Even body structures completely different to men and women. Working around all of them, it would be it is education essentially, isn't it? It's just educating forward. But how can you do that if it's there's a barrier in and it's illegal? That the barrier is quite a big one.
And it's a country where steroids are very easy to get hold of, and pharmaceutical level as well. And because it's so easy to get hold of, they look at a bodybuilder, and they see a list of steroids that person is using, and they think nothing of it, and they're just like, okay, we'll use that as well, we'll do that as well. But you are a female, you're different, your body is different, you can't do what the rest is doing. Even one female can't be doing what another female is doing. Everybody's body is different. And the topic of steroids in Iran is a big topic at the moment, and I feel like the tsunami of death is coming to Iran for these bodybuilders. We've had a lot of death in bodybuilding even over here in the past year, so that's very sad. But in Iran, it's even worse, because it's just so easy to get hold of it. And I see that these women are getting driven towards using these drugs without even thinking that, I have conversation with people, and they ask me, oh, Jayda, should I use this? Should I use that before cardio? And I'm like, Jesus, like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? What? Who told you this is okay? Why are we talking about drugs? Are you getting on stage? Even if you was getting on stage, you don't need to. And I have to really, really sit down and talk to these girls and really make sure they understand. And I put in the hours, I honestly do, to try and emphasize how important it is that they don't put anything in their body that someone
Doesn't need
else,
to
some
be
other
there.
bodybuilder, and doesn't need to be there. Yeah, so that is a topic that really upsets me at the moment, and I'm trying my best to stress it out to women out there that, look, I'm standing on NBC European stage and I haven't used anything to this date because I have not needed it. I've not needed to, and that's me at a professional level in this sport. So
It is crazy. And plus, like, if they see a list of steroids that somebody has used, they've probably seen it on Google, which is probably not the most reliable source, as we said before.
yeah.
I keep on obviously referring to India, and I apologize to do so, but a similar
Yeah,
situation
no.
is happening over there, where kids, on the first time they go to the gym, are getting offered
Yeah,
Dianabol. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what the hell? Like, people are dying of heart attacks,
scary. It's
and
scary.
it is
Yeah,
very scary, because their coach will want return customers because they want instant impact straight away. And that's obviously at the lower level of, like, people just going into the gym to look more aesthetically pleasing. And then the coach, who's meant to be the informed person, is, here's a shortcut. You'll look jacked
true.
in a
Yeah,
couple of days, and
yeah,
then they get repeat custom. But then
yeah,
when the kid has a heart attack, they don't report it as it's from steroids. They report it as something else, or like natural causes. And it's been a lot of
absolutely.
heart attacks
Yeah,
of quote
same
unquote
thing in
natural
Iran.
causes.
Yeah, 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 same thing in Iran. And a lot of people don't have a lot to lose, and a lot of people, have a difficulty mm, living life um, with a lot of wealth. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not going to say poverty because Iran isn't a poor country, but because of the government, they are having a lot of difficulty, a lot of restrictions, and when you don't have a lot to lose, you want to get seen quickly. You don't care
Yeah,
about the side effects.
yeah.
Uh, and you're just going to use whatever grade of steroids you can get your hands on and how much ever of it to just be seen, as soon as possible by the big people in the industry and the big stages. So that is definitely really sad.
And I don't know if it's I've got a very skewed perspective on performance enhancing drugs in general, but for me, it's still a supplement at the end of the day. You still have to reach a certain level, and you still have to supplement your training with it. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter if it's creatine or an injection in your
yeah,
thigh or whatever.
yeah,
At the end of the day, you still have to be at a certain level and going consistently to the gym for it to even have the effect.
yeah,
If you're injecting yourself
absolutely.
with X amount of energy or X amount of whatever, and you don't put in the adequate training, or you don't keep up with your nutrition, then, as we're going back to money, because that's what it boils down to, it's very
Hmm.
inefficient. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And obviously
yeah,
it will have
yeah,
health impact, but what's the point in spending that money if you're not gonna do everything else right?
yeah,
It's
exactly.
probably bad when I'm laughing, but it is the situation at the end of the day.
It's,
You see it in
yeah,
this country as well, where a lot of quote unquote bros will go to the gym. They'll take a few, I'll call them supplements, and they'll think that they're just magically going to get a Johnny Bravo body. Do you know what I mean?
gains.
Exactly,
Quick
gains.
gains.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, honestly, anybody listening to this, if it ever crosses your mind to be using anything, look, we can say here don't, but we all know if someone wants to do something, they'll do it. So all I'm going to say, and my advice always is, please, please get a decent coach. And before you do hire that coach, ask around of their reputation, not from just one person. Try and find different people who've worked with that person. Ask around of their reputation, and if the first thing they offer you is to use some gear to achieve your, physical goals, then you need to be concerned, because a coach that knows their nutrition well and knows their training well isn't going to push that onto someone straight away, unless you're at a professional level and you're just looking at upping your game. And that's a different story. But for a normal person in the gym, few years, and just wants to get more out of their workout and more out of their diet, you really need to be cautious. So think twice.
100%. And yeah, I completely agree with that. When you're talking about coaches there, so going back to when you first started to compete or made that decision, one of the first things you did was find a coach. How quickly was that decision made? Because for me, like, I was in the gym a few years before I didn't even like think of competing or anything, but before I even started to think of even having somebody assist me and trying to get a bit more out of my workout. Was it you were going to the gym and then as soon as you wanted to compete, you knew that you had to get a coach? Was that including a nutritionist, or did you have a separate nutritionist? Like, what sort of steps did you take to get to that first stage physique?
Well, as I said, I was always in the gym. So when the topic of competing came about, it was immediately, well, I need a coach. Just because from being in a sporting background, and having some experience of being coached previously in other sports, I knew the importance of guidance from a coach in any field of sport. And I knew that there's going to be times where the athlete's going to be under pressure and needs guidance more than ever. So that I knew because of my previous experience playing sports. So it wasn't even a matter of, oh, am I going to do this on my own? It was just immediately like, okay, I need a coach, so I need to find a coach. And the gym local to me had a PT who I'd known of, that he had coached bikini girls in this field, and they were really successful. So he was a friend of Omid's cousin, and so I asked his cousin, can you introduce me to him and let me have a chat? And I did, and I had a chat with him, and he said, come have a session with me. Let's see, how much you can push in the session, how much I can push you, and then we can decide from there if you're willing to work hard enough or not. Obviously, I didn't know what was involved in getting ready for a bikini. I didn't think it was that hard. And then the first session ended, and I remember thinking, yeah, okay, it's hard, but I can do it, and I am so competitive. And immediately from that first session, I saw him as my coach, and I wanted him to just be like, you know what, you did brilliant. But he was like, not bad. All right, we can start tomorrow. I was like, we can start tomorrow. That means I've done good enough. That's good for me, So that's where I started. But that's how I became, around the idea of. I came around the idea of thinking I need a coach for this.
So how long did it take from that first session in 2018 until you stepped on stage?
I think I started training maybe October 2018, and then I stepped on stage April 2019
Right.
for the first time. And I actually decided to stand on IFBB stage the first time.
Oh, wow.
Not a fitness and modeling show. Yeah. I just wanted to be involved with the big boys, as they say.
Yeah. Jumping straight in the deep end.
Yeah, and my coach was like, are you sure you want to do this? Because it's a totally different game. I was like, you know what? I need to try it to see which one I'm ready for now and which one I like.
Mm-hmm.
And to see the difference. If I was ever to go back to IFBB, I would know the difference. Obviously, different posing, different, expectations, different kind of judging, stage presence. Everything is quite different. So I stepped on stage. First time it was IFBB, and I placed second.
Oh, looking up.
Yeah,
that's not bad for your first time.
It was an amateur show, but I placed second. Yeah.
What are the steps to get a pro card then? Like, how does that sort of ranking system work?
So back in the days, it was like on a point system a few years ago, where you would just compete to gather points based on your placing to be able to work towards qualifying based on the points for the Olympia. So now you can do pro qualifiers, which first you need to do a regional to get qualified, to do a pro qualifier. So a pro qualifier is your pro card, and if you place, obviously, and then your invitation to compete in Olympia qualifier. And then the Olympia qualifier, obviously, if you place, and that, if you place in the Olympia qualifier, then you can compete at the Olympia. And then you could have a chance at becoming Bikini Olympia or Wellness Olympia or Miss Olympia or Mr. Olympia. So that's the ultimate goal, I think, for most bodybuilders. For some, it's just an IFBB pro card, and for many, it's just the experience.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you do look through Instagram, when you see that IFBB in the profile, it is more like it's like a certification stamp, isn't it? This is legit.
yeah. It is. I mean, a lot of people work so hard and deserve it, and for years, because of judging, not being at the right show at the right time. And I always just speak it like it is, because of the whole political side of it, like any other sport, not just bodybuilding. And who and who you're involved with, who you're coached by. You don't, always, the best don't always get the opportunity instantly to become pro and be seen. So just because that IFBB pro, that stamp is there, of course they're certified, but it doesn't mean that a lot of people that don't have it, now I'm not speaking of myself at all, just out there, I know there's a lot of bodybuilders who are so experienced, so full of wisdom in this sport, that still might not have got their pro card, but they deserve it. So just because that stamp is there doesn't mean that some of the rest aren't good enough as well. So that is something else within the sport that separates bodybuilders.
100%. When you when you got your coach, and I'm guessing that he dialed in your nutrition as well, so that you were ready to get into prep. What other sort of surprises, I guess, is probably the best way to sort of mention it, is like when you were getting ready to step on stage, what sort of things did he not take into consideration? Like, I know that posing is a big part of like bodybuilding, so
that sort of things that I didn't take into consideration.
Like what did sort of like
posing.
With a surprise? Okay, well,
definitely posing, and it's important, and it's more important than training, and more important than dieting. That's my opinion.
Oh wow, really?
Because you can diet, you can get your condition right, you can train, you can put all that muscle density on, and if you can't show it off on stage properly, on the day where you're feeling quite weak, low on water, low on food, and so on, and you don't have a routine to go by, and you don't know how to hold the poses properly, or at an angle that suits your body, because that's the thing with posing. It's created, it's basically like couture. It's made for you.
Yeah.
Like tailored for you. So that's another thing. You can look at other people, and so for example, bikini, we can look at routines at the Olympia stage and copy that. But our bodies are all different, different shapes. Somebody's got smaller waist, or their shoulders are better, or longer legs, or whatever, and all of that a posing coach looks at to give you a routine, to give you poses that suits your physique. And if you can master that and have a good stage presence, then all your hard work is put to waste, basically. Because you are scored on your posing as well.
Yeah, 100%. And like obviously you watch some of the greats, like my favorite's Kai Green. Kai Green does some unbelievable posing routines on stage and things, and when he's obviously moving around the stage, is like, it is art essentially.
And you don't get along like a lot of time to show your physique. So the very short amount of time that you're given, you want to be doing the best, and you want to be hitting exactly what is the best in your physique. Not wasting time on things that you shouldn't really be showing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you want to show your best parts and not your weakest.
You want to just show exactly. You want to show your best. So that's why posing was definitely a surprise, and the amount of time that I had to practice posing was definitely a surprise. I was like, how do people practice posing so much? Train, diet, prep food. It was in the beginning, I felt like it was crazy, but then I realized that, we as humans, if we get into a habit, even if it's a good habit, it's hard to break, and we work better on routine. So I've adapted now, and it's much easier.
Do you feel like it helps training as well? Because if you're learning how to control each muscle group so specifically to whatever you need to show on stage, like if obviously when you're practicing that, do you feel like, say, I don't know, if you're trying to show off your shoulders and putting them in a specific place in the routine, when you train shoulders, you can target your muscle groups more specifically as well?
It definitely makes you more conscious. And as many know, in bodybuilding, the mind and muscle connection is a huge factor. So being conscious and being able to get that, because when you pose, you want to see a certain version of yourself in that pose. And if you see a weakness and you see that it could be better, say, for example, your shoulders you were referring to, then you will work on those weaknesses in the gym as well, because you will look at your pose and you will look at maybe the same pose other people are doing, and you can, compare and even look at yourself previously on stage in that pose and see if you've had any improvements, or if not, that you have to work on it. Yes, definitely posing helps in that aspect as well, 100%.
Yeah, because I think it was it's not specifically for posing, but just being more aware of yourself. I think it was Ronnie Coleman said he used to take a picture of himself every day, print it out, and then get a marker and basically highlight where he wants to grow and what looked right and what didn't look right.
And it's constantly like that, just obsessing over
the minute
different
details.
body parts. Minor little details.
How important is recovery? Because I know obviously we had Primal Therapy, Karen on, who obviously you're a client of as well, and how important is that side of things to make sure that that you recover properly, you get the adequate care and attention that you need to?
First of all, I just gotta say, Karen is like my favorite human in this industry. He is so real that you can't get anyone more realer than this guy, and you gotta listen to everything he says. All the advice. If you're his client, like, just do what he says and you'll be fine. I've been with him for I think over 2 years, and he's just like I've had a lot of injuries, and he's just fixed me up before stepping on stage, helping me to be able to pose better on stage. He's just been amazing. And you know, that's another thing, having someone like that in the team. It's part of a team that can help you hit your poses correctly. And so that I just wanted to point that out before anything. That I'm so grateful for him to always be there, because he saved me so many times. So what was it that you asked exactly?
How important is recovery? Not just
Recovering.
like
Yeah. So I see Karen once a month, right? And that's just to get some work done so I can get rid of pain. And this time around in my off season, which I'm in now, my recovery with the new coach I'm working, he's, you know, put that recovery up. So 2 to 3 times a week, sorry, I'm taking rest. Whereas before it was just like twice a week, maybe once a week. In the middle of the week, I would take rest. But I've realized how much more that is important, especially if you're looking for growth. You have to give your muscles time to rest, to recover, especially the bigger muscles. You know, if you're doing, you want to grow your legs, you need to give your legs much more rest, or your back muscles. But overall, I have noticed that I noticed in my second year of competing, how much recovery is important. And it's just as you know, when I said posing is more important than dieting and more important than training, recovery is as important as training. There has to be a very nice balance between training and recovering. And always, you know, get yourself checked out, go see a chiropractor. If you've got pain, like, you know, a little bit of an ache in your shoulder, I can't ignore it. You know, you can't afford to ignore it. You just got to get it seen to, because that can develop into something that's just going to put you off training for a long time. And a lot of people have that habit, you know, they ignore small pains, and then they'll have other pains, and like it'll start in the shoulder, and then it'll be developing in the neck, and then they'll not know this is linked. This is relevant. So just being so careful that you don't get injured. And so my appointment with Karen once a month has been regular for like nearly 3 years now, literally. And I look forward to it.
It's that fear of missing out, isn't it? It's like people overtrain because they're too scared to undertrain. And then people don't want to see their shoulder, because then they don't want to miss out on the gains, as the pros would say.
To anything you think that's putting too much stress on your body is going to do more bad than any good.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't believe there's such a thing as overtraining. It's just listening to your body, really, what it is. And everybody's bodies are different. So just listening to your body. When you feel like you're tired, take a day off, take 2 days off, take a week off if you have to, you know, just listen to your body and look after it. Get it seen, and don't ignore the signals it's giving you. I think that's the main thing. That's the most important thing.
And most of the time, what I've found is that when you do take them few days off, or like up to a week off, when you come back to the gym, you end up very quickly regaining your strength and then beating personal bests, because your muscles have that rest time.
The performance will be much better.
Yeah, exactly. Your recent competitions over the summer, because of obviously well, off the back of COVID, it did allow for probably more time in between for off season and improvement and that side of things. But when we were supposed to like schedule the original podcast before, I think, your first competition, but the competition got moved back because of all these COVID problems. So how does that impact prep as well? If you've got 6 to 8 weeks and you are dieting for a specific day, and then that day gets put back 2 weeks.
Well, first, the first time it happened, the lockdown happened, I was actually 3 weeks out from doing my pro debut for the fitness and modeling show at Miami Pro. And I had already waited a year to get ready because I wanted to bring my best for the pro show because I was competing as a pro now. So I had already waited a year and then got ready 3 weeks before the competition. Lockdown happened, and I was in a very good shape as well. I was very happy. For the first time, a bodybuilder was happy with their shape when they were going on stage, which is very rare. But yeah, I was 3 weeks out, lockdown happened, and I kept it for as long as I could. I think for about another 3-4 weeks, and I thought maybe it's going to open up, and then I got to a stage where I thought, like, okay, I can't go on forever because it can become damaging to my body as well. I'm just going to try and stay lean. With the gyms being closed, that was quite difficult to do. And I've got a lot of, I don't know if you can see in the background, I've got a lot of like gym equipment. I've got a bench and treadmill, but back then I didn't have that. And this was because of COVID investment. Yeah. so yeah, I invested into equipment. But going forward, I just thought, you know what, I need to get my mind off competition and just try and stay healthy. And at a time where everybody is catching COVID and the health is the most important thing, I just need to try and stay healthy and just do whatever I can. And then the restrictions were lifted, and I heard from my federation that they're looking to put on another show. And there was a lot of anxiety behind that, a lot of anxiety of, do I get ready? Do I not? What do I do? And for weeks, it was just so hard getting back into prep because of being unsure as to what's going on. But eventually I did. And I started working with a different coach. Just wanted to see what they had to offer and bring a different aspect, just, a different technique. I thought that might motivate me into starting my new prep without the whole anxiety of. And the first, I think 2-3 weeks I was still at home. Gyms hadn't still opened, so I was in prep while being at home, and that's when I started buying some equipment. And I thought, you know what? Look, I'm just gonna buy equipment because even if lockdown is lifted, I'm gonna always use it because I'm in this industry. Like, this is my life now. So yeah. And then there was problems with the venue because of COVID and spectators. So the original date, that's when we were talking to do this, and the original date got put back. And then they said it's going to get cancelled. And then they said, okay, no, we've got a new venue. So 2 weeks more extended. So I ended up being in like a 15 weeks prep, I think, instead of 12. Yeah, like it was 3 weeks extra, but I just pulled through. I thought, you know what, it's fine. I eased it down a little bit and then pushed it back up.
So when you like find out that date, do you have like a refeed meal so that you can sort of top up your calories and then come back down a bit, or do you just stay on that steady decline, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit different with me. Yes, usually you do, but it was a bit different with me because I had signed up with a coach. They were supposed to be like top in the industry and had like lots of girls on the bikini stage. And this is where I was saying about the stamp that you get. It might not always be as it seems. So I went and signed up with like one of the top coaches in the industry. And then as I was getting ready for this pro debut, which I was once in a really good shape for, so I was happy. Yeah. This time around, cutting that weight down, I wasn't seeing much progress, and I was actually panicking. And I was like, you know what? Because of COVID, I've put on weight now. I've got to lose it, and it's becoming harder. And this coach doesn't know my body, can't understand it, and nothing against them, but we just can't work together because it's not working for me. So I had to change coach. So I had to go from being on one kind of diet to another kind of diet, and then looking at new dates of, well, when is the actual competition? Well, no, I still got a lot more work to do. And we'll do a very small refeed, and then we'll get back straight back into things again. So I wasn't at a stage where I could just completely step back. I was still at a stage where I needed more work. So yeah, so I didn't unfortunately get that big refeed.
but
I was
you
5 weeks out, and I didn't look like I was 5 weeks out. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't look like I had dieted enough. And fortunately, my amazing current coach from Ace Physique's AU base, he took me on at 5 weeks, which no other coach would have done such late stage into the prep. But he did, and we won.
I was just about
And
to say, but you
overall,
won, yeah.
but we won actually 2 overalls. Yeah, we won 2 overalls together, and won top 5 placements at the European NPC show.
I was gonna say, yeah, congratulations, and I know you went to Europe
Thank
straight
you.
afterwards. It was like
Yeah.
a couple of weeks afterwards. So you won the 2 on the 1 competition, and then a couple of weeks afterwards you went to Europe.
So at Miami Pro, which was a fitness and modeling competition, I made the decision that I wanted to end my bodybuilding career with the fitness and modeling world and transition into IFBB. Having had that experience back at the first time I stepped on stage, I knew that that's where I wanted to be, and my physique could pull through for that kind of stage. And so when I did my pro debut and got the 2 overalls, one of the overalls had a sponsorship to go to Europe and compete at the NPC, which is an amazing, absolutely amazing stage. It was just a dream come true, really. And I didn't think that I would ever be given this opportunity. But yeah, so the federation sponsored me to go with all costs paid. And so
It's not
yeah,
bad,
that was my transition into IFBB.
That's not bad, all expense paid.
Yeah,
It was trip to
yeah.
Spain, wasn't it? Tenerife or something?
Yeah, trip to Spain. Yeah. And I stayed a week extra because I needed rest after my competition.
Obviously,
I
we
was
need
going to use that
recovery.
opportunity. Of course, recovery is important. Remember, like
Exactly.
sand, sea, sand, all that is needed.
What was your first meal after your competition? Your first like big, right, prep's done. I can have whatever I want.
Oh yeah, I went out for a paella
Oh,
because I was in
well,
Spain.
when in Spain.
Yeah, I went in Spain. Yeah, but no, I think I ordered like 10 different things. I love seafood. So I ordered a lot of seafood. I ordered a lot of dessert. At that point, all I was thinking was, I'm just not going to tell my coach how mad I went. I'm just going to tell him I had a cheat meal, but I didn't go mad. But he later saw the pictures and he was just like, you know what, enjoy it.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's hard to lie when you put them on Instagram story.
But you know what? I was actually there for like 4 or 5 days prior to the competition, and I was seeing all this food and like, you know, being out all the time as well. And Omid, bless him, he had to like not
had to prep with you.
Yeah, he had to prep with me, and I actually had to take a grill. I took a grill with me to Spain, and I had it in my hotel room, which I got told off for a couple of times, but it just had to be done. I mean, I went on a whole shopping trip to find asparagus, which I never found in the end because it was out. I don't know, because all the bodybuilders were in town and I'm not sure what was going on, but I just couldn't find asparagus and white fish, and I had to just bring it all back to the hotel and had a whole setup in the balcony of meal prep.
That's how you know the bodybuilders in town, when the asparagus goes missing.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, what had to be done had to be done. So I wasn't going to let my coach down, and wasn't going to let myself down just because I couldn't get hold of, you know, the equipment and stuff that I needed to prep my food. I was going to make that happen no matter what. So I did. I kept getting told off by the hotel, and I was like, but I have to do this. Can your chef make me this fish? And I would happily order. And they were like, no, but you're not allowed to use it either. It was like, well, I have no other choice. And it's like in the middle of prep, I'm just arguing with all the hotel staff as well. But yeah, it is what it is sometimes. you got to fight for your goal like that.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
So is that what the future holds for you now? Are you gonna be competing in more IFBB's competitions?
Yeah, so I'm done with the fitness and modeling world. It was a great experience. I absolutely loved it because it was just so much more fun and a lot more glam to it. So I got to experience that, which was really good. I met a lot of great people, amazing people in the industry. I'm so grateful for pushing me to the point where I am now. Yeah, I have officially started my journey to the IFBB Pro card, and I will be back in prep. I'm not completely off season right now. I'm still watching food. I'm still training every day because I don't want to get back to the situation I had in after COVID, after the lockdown. So I'm really watching it this time to make things easier for me and ease it down for my body as well. So January I'll be back in prep. Hopefully I'll be back on stage in Spain again. Or around June time. Yeah.
Should be fun. Should be very fun.
Yeah. Hopefully I can get a much higher placement. I mean, I wasn't expecting a placement at all for first time being on that stage. I mean, the competition is just so high. When I got there, I thought, okay, I might not have a chance, but I'm just grateful for being here.
Yeah.
Even more grateful because I'm a woman of my culture and I'm able to be here and stand on such a huge stage. So I felt like I had already won, to be honest. And then when I got off stage, I didn't even get compared that much. And I thought, oh my God, that's a really bad sign. I'm not even going to be top 10. So I walked off and then I was going backstage again and I just heard my name being shouted, like, come back, where are you going? And I thought, well, I'm done. I didn't even get compared. It was like, no, stay here. You're going to get something. Your name's on the list. You're going back on for awards. And I thought, oh my goodness, are you serious? And I didn't even care what award. I just, the fact that I was actually being placed at my first show, it's such a huge competition. I was just like, oh my God, thank you. Like, literally. Yeah, all my hard work paid off, which was a great feeling. So always going back for first place.
And if you think the first competition was in 2019 and 2021, it's only 2 years and 18 months of that is COVID. Like it's a lot of progress in a short amount of time.
Yeah,
how
definitely.
how far do you want to take this? We mentioned Olympia before, and you said every bodybuilder's dream.
Yes, and because I'm such a competitive person and I never get involved in anything that I don't finish in a way that I'm satisfied. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I've given myself 3 years in this industry, in this field, because I do want to start a family. I can't, drag Omid into this forever because it's hard living with someone that's been prepping in this industry. And so because I want to, have that life, I've given myself 3 years. So, but I'm really going to push for the next 3 years. And my vision is Olympia. My vision at the moment isn't winning the Olympia. I'm very realistic in everything I do. At the moment, isn't winning the Olympia. It's just getting to the Olympia. I've given myself 3 years to see if I can achieve that goal and get to the Olympia stage. And if I do that within 3 years, we can have another chat. And then I'll be like, look, I'm going to win the Olympia.
Definitely. I believe in you. I'll be cheering on. I'll be like, yo, that's Jayda. She's on the Olympia stage.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's the current vision right now.
No, that's amazing. And I really appreciate your time today. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Me
We've
too.
dove deep on quite a few topics that
Yeah.
I'm really happy about, to be fair. So again, I
I'm
really
so
appreciate
glad we got the chance to do this. I felt like it really was jinxed and we just couldn't make the
it. Yeah,
time, but I'm
it was
really
worth the
happy that
wait.
we
It
did
was worth
this.
the wait.
Yeah, and I really hope somebody out there can take some good out of, all the conversations that we've had tonight. And it could be useful for someone out there. Just always believe, just believe in yourself, and honestly, never stop. Just don't stop doing what you love. Just go get it. Go get it.
100%, 100%. Just before we wrap up, though, I tend to finish on the same 5 questions that I ask to every guest, sort of like in a quick fire fashion thing. So the first one of these is, what are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? That's really a hard question.
They don't get easier.
Oh, geez. I'm proud of the person I have become, regardless of everything that society put me through and tried to make me believe about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud of who I've become.
Definitely.
And for not giving up. Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to?
I'm most looking forward to seeing the smile on Omid and Ayub, my coach's face, when I get my pro card.
What is your biggest motivation?
Biggest motivation. Biggest motivation. There are people who are my motivation in life. My partner is my motivation, and he's my biggest motivation because he's pushed me in this field and he made me find myself in what I love doing, and in who I could be, that that was hidden for so many years, basically. So yeah.
What is your definition of success?
Oh, that's a really good question. I always think about that. I think success is when you get to a certain level of maturity, that you can see your achievements and not just materials as part of your success. I think that when you know that you've done your best in whatever it is, you can feel successful. That's what success is for me. Not material things, not money, not trophies, just knowing that I've done the best I could in that situation towards that goal is success.
Smashed it. And last but not least, because it's the KultureKast podcast, how has your culture affected you in your journey thus far?
Oh, dramatically. It's motivated me. It's made me sad at points, and then gave me the drive to get back up again, and to show a lot of times that you can change people's mentality, and you can do things against what you've been told for years, but do it in a good way. Bring something good. It's really had a huge effect, and I'm forever actually grateful for who I am, where I come from, and because it's a big part of who I am today.
Smashed it. That's amazing. was a nice way
Thank
to end the
you.
episode. And I really appreciate your time again. I will leave links and things into the description for your socials. And is there anything you would like to say before we wrap up?
No, honestly, I think everything has been covered. I'm just grateful to have this opportunity to speak out to everyone out there who might have had the same experiences as me, who might have thought some of the same as my thoughts at some points in their lives. Look at me, look at what I'm doing, look at where I am. I decided to continue regardless of what was going on around me. And you all do the same. You all just keep going and smash it.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect.